Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. You know, I have an amazing author on today, and she's written some amazing children's books. So I have to kind of just show off one of her books. Tiffany, welcome to the stories, and she's got her book up too. Stories That Inspire Us. Excuse me, the author series. You're not only obviously an author of this amazing book series, but you're also an attorney, and of course, self-publisher, Sugar Cookie Books.
Yes.
Wow. So I wanted to, and of course, for our listeners on the Wisdom audio app, I know that you cannot see me holding up her book. Later on, of course, you know, if you, I will make sure all of her information is in the show notes, of course, and up on the website. You wrote a series of children's books, and I think this comes at such an amazing time. Obviously, it's right before Easter, but you really wrote these with Black children in mind. And I think that is so important on so many different levels. But really, when I was showing my little grandniece and grandnephew, they're like, Auntie, can we have that book after you're done with it? So it really can transcend to any child.
Yeah, so definitely. So the book is written for any child, but there is an emphasis and a focus on really getting to, like you said, the Black children and the Black families. So I like to say my books are for everybody. The intention of the Career Day book series is to make Career Day any day or every day, you decide. So I do not want it to be off-putting to other groups just because I have my son, it's a likeness of my son, his name is Andrew, and this is his likeness on the cover, or because it follows him and his mama most of the time, or that it highlights some of the pioneers, Black pioneers in the field. All of that is very important, and I think everyone can benefit from it. But yeah, so this is the 5th book in the Andrew Career Day book series. It was inspired by my son, as is most of them. But as you may recall, Janice, in the copy that you have, it begins with Andrew playing with a dinosaur fossil kit. And that is literally what Andrew was doing when I sat down and wrote this book, because he was so excited. He has declared to be a paleontologist. And so yeah. Uh-oh, you're frozen on my end. Ah. So while she's frozen, okay, there she is.
That is so technical difficulty. So just bear with me a second here. All the connections look good, so I do apologize. As you were saying, you know, centered around your son. Our sons really inspire us in many different ways that we haven't anticipated. And your son, at a very early age, wanting to be a paleontologist, what does he think of his mom writing these books? And his faces, his likeness,
right,
are on these.
So right now he likes it. He is currently 7. I published the first book in the Andrew series when he was 4. So he really loves it. He loves to see his likeness on all these different merchandise and on the pages of the book. He thinks he's like my book editor or something. So he goes through and he makes sure the pictures are just right. So for this one, since he deems himself a paleontologist and knows so much about dinosaurs, I'm like, is that a real dinosaur? Did she draw that dinosaur correctly? What dinosaur is that? Like, it has to be right, because I don't want my son being like, those are not real. So he was the dinosaur expert for this particular book. So he really enjoys it. And he's always like, Mom, you're so lucky. I don't know if that's lack of a better term, but he always says, Mom, you're so lucky. You have 2 jobs. You're an attorney and you're an author. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm lucky. But I just think that means he's really impressed and proud of his mom for, you know, doing the things that I'm doing.
Right, exactly. Now, back when he was 4 years old, what was the kind of the behind the force, where there had to be a point where where in your writing journey, and especially of course of being an attorney where you're always writing, but this really was, I want to say, a labor of love. When did you know that you wanted to write these type of children's books?
That's good. That's a good question. So the first book in the series is Andrew Learns About Actors. And it came about again by my son. He was running around playing around with the TV. We both enjoy TV. We both enjoy interacting with the TV, and we both enjoy reading. But I just also wondered, did he realize that the characters were played by actors? So there's actors and there's characters that they play. And so I thought about, like, how would you explain that to a child? And to add on top of that, how can you inspire a child who is into theater or drama to pursue this type of career? So it was like a lot of things I wanted to accomplish with the first book. I put the first book out and I was like, oh, career day, I don't know how often they do it in school anymore, but this would actually allow for, like, if I had a whole series, this would actually allow for people to be able to go and say, I want to learn about this book. You don't have to have something so formal in case they're not doing formal anymore. I know a lot of schools still do, but I know a lot of schools do not. And I know that if they do, it's still at the like lower level. So like my son has career day coming up April 12th. So so it's just like, okay, how can I reach children? We're asked at a very young age, what do we want to be when we grow up? But we're not equipped to really answer that question because we don't know what our options are. And even the things that we've heard about, we don't know what they do. So I like to give the story of, I was told that I was going to be a lawyer very young. And so I set on becoming a lawyer and I didn't know what they did. And I am the first lawyer in my family. And so I didn't meet a lawyer until I was in the 11th grade. And so I'm like, that is just way too late. I'm about to go off to college and do law school. And so I just wanted to be able to put together books that could explain to children young enough, around pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, up to about third or fourth grade. What is it that these different careers do? So when someone says you can be a scientist, you can be an engineer, or they themselves can say, I like dinosaurs, maybe I will consider scientist. I like to understand how the body works. Why when I cut myself, I bleed, or I hurt myself, I bleed. That's interesting to me. Maybe I can be a biologist or something. So yeah, I just want to be able to inspire all children to think about these things. And I will say one more thing about it. You mentioned the Black focus, and I always say, I give my little soapbox a little bit, that in 2023, Black people are still accomplishing so much. Minority groups are still accomplishing so much, and it's 2023. And I also like to say that, or point out that it wasn't so long ago where the most Black people could aspire to be was the best domestic worker or the best field worker. So to be able to still make these first, like we just had a first Black president about 10 years ago. Yeah, it's 10 years ago now, 14 years ago now. But look how many years it took, So just to be able to say this is something you can actually aspire to be, a lawyer, a scientist, an engineer, an actor, a teacher, and so on.
Yeah, that is so true. And what I really love about this book, for instance, obviously we're chatting about Andrew Learns About Scientists. Whoops, hit my keyboard there. But you really take the child or the reader, because I'm not gonna lie, I really book. It was so well written. And you're talking about scientists, and you bring the child or the reader through the process, the observation. What do they do? The question, and how math and everyday skills kind of go into that. The actual experiment, and what was the conclusion? Like, that is, like, I understood science a little bit more after I read this book.
Good. Like, that makes me so happy because it is for the children, but I also want, hopefully, that the parents are reading with the children. So they are also learning about these different things so they can have these conversations. They're using these books as resources to start a conversation, to dig a little deeper, to see what are they interested in? Will they be interested in this? So for you to say you learned something, and I know other parents as well, with this book, for example, Andrew Learns About Scientists was like, I didn't know what a paleontologist was. So thank you so much for letting me know. I did not know there were all these different types of scientists. I think I explore seven to nine different sciences in the book. But yeah, so for you to say that, thank you so much. That's something I wanted to accomplish as well.
Oh, you are so welcome. And back to the paleontologist, you know, I obviously can relate to that. My son is now 35 years old, but when he was little, he wanted to be a paleontologist.
Mhm.
And, you know, he had to have, you know, all the different figurines, you know, T-Rex or this or that. Just kind of a funny question. If your son has any of those types of figurines, which I'm sure he probably does, and perhaps you've called it the wrong name, like my son would be, Mom, that's not a,
Yeah.
you know, whatever I would call it, it's this. And he would really go into what that dinosaur did and how they did it.
Yes, that is my son. You call something, so I think his favorite right now is a Patasaurus. No, hold on, Ankylosaurus. And so he that's like you're just gonna sit there and have to listen to like 35 minutes about why Ankylosaurus is the best or why they're different from a Patasaurus, a Brachiosaurus, and all these things. He knows about the little toes and what makes it. They have 3 toes, they're this type of dinosaur. If they have 2 toes, is that type of dinosaur. He talks about herbivores and carnivores, and then he says, "Oh, I'm eating meat today, so therefore I'm a carnivore." And I'm like, okay, but you can't, I don't know, put your shirt on correctly. So it's like you know about all these dinosaurs. But yeah, so we definitely have that.
And that's so interesting that he's relating that to his own life. Like, okay, I ate meat today, I'm a carnivore. Like, that's priceless. So he's learning, he's teaching himself and is enthusiastic about it. And it's not like, as the parent, like I never thought that I had to like push that on Ryan. Like he gravitated toward that. He wanted to educate himself, and you know, of course, would ask me questions from time to time, and I'd be like, I don't know, let's look that up together. So that is amazing. What do you see as far as, you know, getting these types of books into school? Are they in your son's school, for instance?
I have gifted 1, 2, or 3 copies to like the teachers that he would have at that time. So kindergarten last year, I gifted his teachers. I think at the time I had actors and teachers, and that was it. So I gifted her those 2. And then this year, his first grade year, I gifted her Andrew Learns About Engineers. And so she's been supporting and buying like additional books. So if I go do an author visit, I might gift the teacher that I'm visiting, class I'm visiting, a book. But getting it in schools, I mean, I think it's been my 3rd year doing this. I'm going on my 3rd year of doing this. So it's just taking it day by day. When I go to markets, then the teachers are like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like, this is what we need. And so they may go on to buy, you know, a whole bunch, but I don't know because they'll buy it from the distributors. Because at the market, I don't have 50 copies. I only have like 10, if you will. So yeah, I would love to be in the classrooms. I would love for people to use this as resources for career day. Again, I know a couple of parents, mommy lawyers, have messaged me and say, look, they're holding like my Andrew Learns About Lawyers book. They're like, I had career day at my son's school today and I used your book. And I'm like, yes, perfect. I've written it out for you. Like, just go ahead and prosper.
That is wonderful. And what a great way to connect, engage, and collaborate in such a way where really everyone benefits.
Yep. And so, yeah, so I just hope to one day become, as I say, the Britannica of career books for kids. So I have a million books to go. I have at least 20 books to go, but I would like to have, almost to your point, a class set where it's 25, 26, 30 books. And they're like, we're going to talk about engineers today. We're going to talk about scientists today. And they're able to do it because, as you realize, Janet and Janice and kind of touched on, it talks about the scientific process and or method. And it talks about these different, it's packed with information. That's my point. But it's packed with information really quickly. in a way that we're not like belaboring the point, but you get so much information, but you also get in and out of the book. So being able to balance that, I think, has been a real big benefit for me. And people are always like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's my gift, one of my skills I acquired, as an attorney.
What an amazing skill to acquire, because obviously you've also sparked that curiosity in your son, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What do
Not, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I wish I had inspired him to becoming a lawyer, but that didn't work. I think he is leaning more toward more STEM related fields. I think that is his forte, his strengths. So, I mean, it'll be fine too. So that's how I kind of ended up with 2 STEM books back to back, because that's what his interests are kind of leaning toward at the moment. So we'll see.
Where do you see the Andrew series going? You had mentioned, 20 books, that you wanted to be the Britannica of these types of books. No doubt you already are. Just want to make that clarification. Really beautifully written, beautifully illustrated. And like I said, I did learn something along the way. And I think that's important for not only the child, but the parent, the caregiver, whomever it is that is, reading the book with the child. Do you see yourself perhaps doing a virtual story hour?
Or I do those, yes. I'm like, is that an invitation?
Quite possibly, absolutely.
But yes, I have done virtual read alouds, especially during the pandemic, because that's when I started. So that was like the norm.
And how did the different parents or the children that came to your virtual story hour, how did they react? Obviously, of course, during the pandemic, we all started doing different things. I, of course, started podcasting. What was the feedback from that? Because I imagine that was just such a great way to meet other parents and other children and share your books.
Well, the virtual story times were hosted by schools or classrooms. So the parents were not there during the story times that I'm thinking of. I have had a recent one where I did it on a Sunday, so the parents were there, but for the Andrew books, I've only read it to classrooms during school hours. Or no, let me take that back. Virtually, I've only read it to classrooms during school hours, and the kids have been really receptive depending on the age group. So when I have like a pre-K or a kindergarten, I usually do Andrew Learns About Actors, because that's not as technical, or I'll do Andrew Learns About Teachers, because one, they can identify a teacher right in front of them. Right. And also, hopefully it makes the teacher feel good because of the way that's written. I know you probably haven't seen that one, but that one was written to educate kids about, the person you're looking at in front of you, you can actually be that as well. It also features a Black male teacher, because those are unicorns where I'm from. Like, we don't have Black male educators, especially not at the elementary level. And then because it was written during the pandemic as well, that one came out April 2021. So it was written during the pandemic. And I was seeing my husband, who's an educator, my mom, who's an educator, they had to teach virtually. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. So like, what are y'all being asked to do? But they rose to the occasion. And I was like, they need to know that they're just as important as, dare I say, doctors who were going out there saving people's lives. They were unsung heroes in their own ways as well. And so I wanted to write that as an ode to teachers. Like, teachers are the bomb. So reading that in the classroom, I want the teachers to feel like, oh, thank you so much for thinking of us, but also to educate children that that is a real profession. And if you're just starting school, then this is what teachers do. This is what you can expect, and things like that. So the lower level kids, of course, they ask their questions, or if I'm doing actors, what's your favorite TV show? So we start talking about TV or, the characters. Now that, unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman has died. So now we have to think about, like, we thought he was Black Panther. Even me as an adult is like, that is Black Panther, you know? So the book, Andrew Learns About Actors, has become even that more relevant to explain the difference between Chadwick Boseman and Black Panther. So those read alouds have been fun. I did do a read aloud, virtual read aloud for sciences. And it was for a school, I can't remember where it was, but it was like on the East Coast. And it was to fourth graders. And so, of course, they had interesting questions, they listened, and they were able to really, I don't know, engage with the content, if you will. So that was really good. And I do like knowing if my art or my books are hitting, the message is hitting. So to do those read alouds, it lets you know, like, okay, you're on the right path, or you need to take a detour.
Wow. Well, I don't think you will be taking any detours anytime soon, because you, again, I want to go back to what you said about the Britannica of book. I see it actually being probably 30 to 40. Like, I see you getting there very quickly. So be careful what you wish for, that kind of, because I really think this book is so much more depth, so much more learning. And for those who will be viewing, I mean, I'm just going to flip through it really quick so you can see some of the graphics. I mean, this is one of those great books, especially if a family is going on vacation, can fit in the backpack, you know, it's easy to pack. It's a great read. Oh my gosh, like and of course, as I mentioned too, Easter's coming up. So if you're looking for that great gift, you know, please go ahead and order the Andrew Learns About Scientists and the other books as well. Excuse me, as an attorney, as a mom, as a wife, how do you do it all?
Exactly. That is the $1 million question. How are you doing this? And, you know, I just say that, so during my 8 to 5, so what I do, equal opportunity advisor, I assist the institution or advise the institution on how to comply with Title VII and Title IX. And so those are, Title VII is the Civil Rights Act statute that prohibits discrimination and harassment in employment. And Title IX is the statute that prohibits sex discrimination and harassment in employment, just to give that context. So in addition to advising, I hear a lot of complaints because when people feel like their rights have been violated, then that comes to my office. So I think a part of what has pushed me to produce so much, even though, you know, I have these time constraints, is that it's like an escape, a release. So I'm hearing people saying I'm being discriminated against, I'm being harassed. And then I'm able to put pen to paper or words to notepad on my phone and say, I'm going to inspire a new generation. I'm going to put some good out in the world instead of being so reactive. Let me be proactive. So I think part of that has been my driving force, like an escape, a release of, this is how I can additionally contribute to, you know, society or the workforce and things like that. But I also like to say and tell people I don't put a lot of pressure on myself because I do have, it's my publishing company. And so I do have a family. I am a wife. I am a mother of 2 children, 7, and one's about to be 2 years old next week. And I try to have some type of work-life balance. So while I might dedicate like an hour after work while my mom is still at the house because she comes over to watch my baby daughter, provide that childcare for me, I might stay like in my office for an hour, like catching up on things, scheduling things, writing, but I usually write on the go. Like I write on my phone. And so if I'm sitting in the car and something comes to mind, I'll write the notes down, and it'll probably be a whole bunch of different notes. And as I like to tell people, as the story starts to actually form, that's when I'm like, okay, well, let me get this story fleshed all the way out and start that whole process. But until then, I'm just walking around, sitting on the couch with my little phone and writing notes, just writing notes. And then it comes together and then it comes out to the world. But yeah, I just give myself grace. And I don't put the pressure on myself or try not to.
And that's so important because I know that people that are going to be viewing or listening to the podcast, once it's uploaded, perhaps they have a book in them, and how can they do it all? And, what a great way to make a very good use out of your mobile device, and, to jot down a few notes or a few ideas that you may have for someone who wants to do that. And thank you so much for sharing how you do get it all done. And, obviously the time management part is a big thing to that. What would you say, in addition to someone who's like, I don't know if I can do what Tiffany does, but I really want to make that difference and write my book to inspire others?
Yeah, so as someone has said, comparison is the thief of joy. So while it's so easy to be like, oh, how I want to do it like them, or I love how they're doing it, or I want to achieve the same things. One, just I try to stay in my own lane. Ava DuVernay once said, or has said, when you're in your lane, there's no traffic. So while I do sometimes get the thoughts or feelings of, oh man, if only I was there, I wish I was doing that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm doing it in my own pace. So my advice is the same advice that I give to myself. Focus on you, focus on your mission. If I write a book in a year, but it takes you 5 years to write it, what's the difference? Like there's no difference there. You still accomplished your goal and you still put out a product that you're proud of and that will inspire masses. I have 17 titles under my belt, well, really 18 under my belt right now in 2.5 years. That doesn't mean that's going to be someone else, a course. And that doesn't mean that's the only way you can make an impact in the literary world. So the way I'm doing it doesn't have to be the way other people are doing it. Just like the way someone else is doing it doesn't have to be the way I'm doing it. And I say that to my mom because we talk about it sometimes. And I'm like, social media, let's just talk about social media for a second. There's so much opinions out there about how much you're supposed to be have to be on social media, how engaged you have to be, what content you have to create, and all those things. And social media is an important platform for, doing what we're doing. I'm not going to say it's not, but I just know what I can give. And I'm just going to have to, if I can only do a post a day, and that means that my followership or views are going to be lower than someone who does 10 reels a day, I'm gonna have to just know that and be okay with it and say, I'm going at my pace. I cannot put that pressure on myself. I don't have the bandwidth to put that pressure on myself. And so we'll get to the same end goal, I guess. It's just a different way of getting there.
I love that, and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's really important for those who may, like I said, may be listening to, to focus on you, focus on your mission. And of course, my mission with starting a third podcast, with having, well, I'm actually the host of 3 podcasts, one that I co-host with my sister. People thought that I was crazy for starting a third podcast, but I really wanted to showcase and provide that platform. Like that really was my mission. Was it hard at first? Yes, but now I've pretty much have the rhythm down, so to speak. So whatever your goal is, whatever your desire is, whatever your mission is, it's definitely attainable. Tiffany, I think part of that too is the journey that we walk with that. Like we know we're going to get to that destination, but it's the journey along the way. What are a couple things that you've learned about your journey with writing these books?
Well, that's a really good question. What have I learned about this journey? Oh, one thing I learned, and luckily I learned it early on, was that success is how you define it. So I had to define what success was for me. And that changes month after month, year after year. But I had to understand, and that kind of goes back to the comparison, like, what was I trying to accomplish? At the time, I only had Andrew Learns About Actors. What was I trying to accomplish with that book, if anything? And did I do it? And also, I learned that what I can control, I can focus on that. And what I can't control, then I have to kind of just figure out a way to deal with that. And by that, I mean, for example, I can control the type of product I put out, but I can control how people receive it. So to put another example to kind of drive that point home is a lot of people receive my products really well. So that makes me happy, of course. But it's art in a sense, and people can be subjective and just the climate. So when I had put out Andrew Learns About Lawyers, and an Amazon consumer or customer purchased the book. I don't know why they would purchase it if they had all this negative stuff to say about it, but they purchased the book and pretty much called it woke and criticized the book for featuring a Black child and his mother, and talking about lawyers and diversity and that and all those things. And so the review has been taken down because it violated the rules, but it's just to say, like, I couldn't control what he was going to say. I mean, I controlled get it and take it down, but I couldn't control what he was going to say. But I know that I put out a product that I was proud of and that a lot of people have been proud of. And so I have to just focus. I've learned to just focus on doing what I can and letting the rest happen. I had to, along my journey, I learned that what Williamson said, which is the fear is not that we're inadequate, the fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. So once I started, I realized that I had so many skills that I never knew I possessed. And, you know, and that's scary. Like you're like, oh, I can't do it because I haven't taken a writing course, for example. But I haven't taken a formal children book writing course. I'm always learning and trying to hold my skills, but I haven't taken, like, I don't have a degree in writing English or anything like that. And I could have said, let me just stop there. I'm not going to be able to do this. But I started on the journey. And in starting on the journey, now I have 17 titles that do pretty well. I've been hired to write. One of my recent releases that came out last week was The Story of Maya Angelou. And that project is so near and dear to my heart. But I'm not going to go on that tangent. But yeah, so you just have to start. So I've learned that, like, the worst someone can say is no or say nothing. And a delayed yes or a delayed response does not mean a no. Sometimes I'll send emails or contact someone and not hear anything. But then months later, or even a year later, like, hey, are you still interested in? And I'm like, oh, my email didn't go into a black hole. Yes, I'm still interested. So just learning to move forward, even on fear. I'm trying to remember what someone said, do it scared. Learning how to do it scared. That's a lot of my journey. Doing it scared. I'm terrified most of the time.
You bring up something very Bible there. You did it, but you did it scared. And despite that, negative comment, for every action, there's a reaction, but it's art and art is subjective. And by the way, I would have deleted that comment as well. And who cares who may have seen it? Again, a beautifully written, beautifully illustrated book. And by the way, I do see you on a TEDx stage.
Oh, wow. I'm going to receive, look, I'm about to start crying. I'm about to receive that. I am going to receive that. And I'm also going to say why I'm like, wow, this is like, I don't know. I remember a long time ago, I was either in high school or college, but I was at home for some reason. So I can't remember which one it was, but I was in my mom's car and I was on the passenger side. And I told my mom, I said, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, but I'm gonna be doing something where I'm speaking to a lot of people. And she was like, well, what is it? I was like, I don't know, but I see myself speaking on a stage to a lot of people. So when you say that, and look, that was years ago. That's like over 20 years ago that I've said that, 15 to 20 years ago. So for you to say that, I'm like, wow. Wow, that's a wow.
That is a wow, because coming from the heart, and sharing your passion of writing these books and why it was important to you. When we met for our pre-podcast chit chat, I believe I also said, I believe in the story behind the story, because that's what really can really catapult where the project is going to go. I never thought I would start a third podcast. But here I am meeting so many amazing people, literally from around the world, sharing their stories behind the story. I can't wait to actually see you on that TEDx stage. So you'll have to keep us posted on that. What is a huge goal that you have for sugar cookie books?
For sugar cookie books. So let's see. I'm trying to remember my notes of my manifestation. So and it's like getting convoluted with my husband's goals for sugar cookie books. So I'm like, which one are my goals, not my husband's? So I will say that this year, 2023, I told myself that I'm about to reach 20 titles. I'm about to release 3 more books. And that's not including the story of Maya Angelou. That came out under, like I said, I was hired to write that. So that came out under a different publisher, Rock Ridge Press. Say that fast 3 times. So for Sugar Cookie Books, I am putting out 3 more titles next month, and that will bring me up to 20. And I'm like, okay, that's a good place to stop. If 1 wasn't a good place to stop, 20 is definitely. And I stopped as in I'm never going to create again. But now I want to shift to kind of building and expanding my reach, I guess. So the marketing component of it, being more present, talking to people like Janice, just getting the message out there, getting my brand out there, and also helping other authors and publishers along the way. And so that's my goals for 2023, just becoming an actual respected, reputable publishing house and helping people along the way. If they have goals to be a rapid publisher, which is what they refer to me as, then this is how, I can help you in this way to get there, or just using my platform. I only have 1.2K followers on Instagram, but using my platform to spread messages that are important. Today, someone had posted, an author, she wrote Feathers from Above, and she posted like, whoever needs this book to cope with the Nashville, Tennessee situation, she's like, I'll give it away for free. Like, just let me know and it's yours. And so I like spread that around because that's goodness. That's good. People need to know that other people are here to help. So those are my goals for this year. I would like to, I guess, bigger than that. So with I don't know if there's anything bigger than that, but with Amazon, since it is the largest online retailer of books, I have achieved the #1 bestseller badge where Andrew learns about engineers in the children engineering books category. So I had received that a few times, but it comes and goes. Right now, I'm battling with a STEAM activity book. It keeps holding #1, and I'm like at #2. I'm like, get away! You're taking my spot. But I would love to have the badge of teacher's pick for my Andrew books, or even my seasons books, because I mean it's a badge and that means something. I would love to have one of those. Is it Caldecott or Newberry? Whichever one is for authors, one of those honors on one of my books. Now, that's a real big goal. One of those honors on one of my books. I would love that. I would love Coretta Scott King honor on medal on one of my books or whatever. So just thinking broader, those are some of the type of things I think about.
I think that's wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. How can our viewers and listeners connect with you further? You had mentioned Instagram.
I'm sorry.
You had mentioned Instagram.
Yes. So I do have Instagram, Facebook at Sugar Cookie Books. My website is sugarcookiebooks.com. My Pinterest is Sugar Cookie Books. My teacher pay teachers, I have a store, that's Sugar Cookie Books. So if you get the pattern by now, Sugar Cookie Books, you can find me.
Wonderful. My gosh, Tiffany, I so enjoyed our conversation today. This book has inspired not only myself, but my little grandniece and grandnephew. And by the way, my little grandniece, I call her Princess Ray Ray, said, and I wanted to share this with you. I'm going to write a book someday. So thank you for allowing me to share your book and your story. I hope you will definitely consider coming on again. And who knows, maybe a Stories That Inspire Us virtual story hour with Tiffany.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Janice. I loved it. Thank you for your flexibility too.
You are so welcome. Well, everyone, as I said, of course, I will make sure that all of Tiffany's contact information is in the show notes. I want to thank, wow, all of my amazing listeners currently on the Wisdom audio app. I absolutely love Wisdom. Thank you all so much for being here today. Remember, if you have a story to share and you are sparked by today's conversation, I know I am further inspired by Tiffany and the Andrew Learns About Scientists and her book series. I can't wait to read the rest of the books. Just saying, these are not just for kids, because I think I'm going to have my own little collection here. On that note, everyone, if you do have a story to share, please feel free to go to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast website and fill in the guest registration, and let's share your story. My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Thank you so much, Tiffany, and we shall see you all again very soon. Bye for now.